What's up, everybody? My name is Aaron, and welcome to the Mad Maker Studio, and welcome back to 80 Days, as in 80 Days Around the World, as in the game where I talk way too much at an unprecedented speed. We are on day 52, less than 30 days left in our journey. I highly doubt we are going to get around the world in the way that Monsieur Fogg wanted to. But we're going to try, see how far we get, and, you know, maybe we'll surprise ourselves. Right now we're headed to Yokohama. The Sugawara was an Imperial Japanese steamship designed by French engineers and crewed by naval conscripts drawn from all four occupations. Captain Hirosu bowed slightly in greeting, and I gave her a bow of the same depth, gave her a deeper bow of respect, which caused her to raise an approving eyebrow. "Welcome aboard," she told us, as the crew raced about readying the ship for departure. "With God's grace, we will have a swift journey." Get your health back up, Fogg. We'll check the newspaper next time. I encountered Captain Hirosu on deck in the morning and noticed that she wore a katana in a beautifully worked sheath. "Are you a samurai?" "That is a beautiful weapon," I said reverently, having been swept away by the recent Parisian fashion of japonisme. Captain Hirosu ducked her head. It is not a military issue, Gunto," she admitted. "It has personal value to me." I sensed she did not want to speak further, and did not press her. Ah well, there would be time enough to get to know Captain better in our journey to Yokohama. Oh, what's the newspaper say? Oh, another victim of Madra's head smasher found dead. Good thing we're not there. In the morning, I saw Captain Hirosu praying at the little Protestant chapel beside the galley. "You are not a Confucian? What do you pray for, Captain?" Not wanting to disturb her. "What do you pray for, Captain?" I asked. "I pray for the health and long life of Emperor Meiji," she said, so fervently that the commonplace words rang with truth. "He looks to the west and thus towards progress," I considered her words. "Are you a product of this progress? But what of your own traditions?" Her hand closed over the hilt of her katana. 5 years ago, it was illegal for a peasant or a woman to wear a sword. Now Emperor Meiji has given me a warship. Yet you still wear a samurai's katana. Progress does not have to deny the past. Captain Hirosu laughed. "Eastern morals, Western technology." She shook her head. "You sound like my father and uncles. They are samurai. The men of my family are all samurai. They must be very proud of you. Is that why you joined the Navy?" "No," Captain Hirosu closed her eyes. "My father is still loyal to his daimyo and fights against the Emperor." "Your father does not believe in progress?" The captain gave me a tired smile. "The Emperor has reduced the samurai's privileges and cut their wages. My father is angry." "Will he change his mind with you? What about your mother?" "Oh, she is angry with both of us, and little wonder." The captain's eyes lit with rueful laughter. "Still, she rather likes Sugawara." An officer came to fetch Captain Hirosu away from some pressing duty, and I was left with my whirling thoughts. Whoops, did not click fast enough. Yokohama Harbor was thronged with steamships flying foreign flags, Dutch, French, British, American, even a few Russian ones. The Sugawara was a regal sight, and she pulled up to the docks. "Good health to your Emperor, Captain. I hope you reconcile with your family, Captain." The captain came to say, "I hope you reconcile with your family, Captain." We'll wish good health to the Emperor, I called as we disembarked. Captain Hirosu only smiled and bowed, perhaps a little more deeply than when we had boarded. Can we explore and then go to the market? Ooh, where are we going? San Francisco. It was hard to believe that Yokohama had only relatively recently opened to foreigners. There was an entire foreigners district not far from the waterfront where it was common to hear Chinese or Russian as Japanese. There were several varieties of English. There was a melding of cultures and clothing styles. Russians arrayed in their rich colors, hoop-skirted British ladies of Bengal or Singapore, Americans who had adopted the coat like kaori over their shirts and trousers, I noticed a Japanese man watching the scene with a look of intense concentration and scribbling in a sketchbook. I leaned in for a look. He was drawing a stylized picture of foreign quarters with quick pen strokes, which stopped abruptly as my shadow fell over his drawing. He looked up, clearly irritated. "Do you mind?" he said, his accent an unholy mix of Dutch, French, and English. "I am making a drawing for a woodcut." Why does that American appear drunk? The skirts aren't that voluminous. He was clearly a temperamental sort, so I left him to his work with a polite smile. I do not think he liked foreigners from his drawing of them. Okay, let's check out the market. Ooh, amethyst. Yes, please, let's sell that. Alright, and we're gonna leave it there. We're gonna keep 3 suitcases. Check that. Plan. Where should we go? I think we just go straight to San Francisco. Oh, 2 weeks, 14 days. I'm not opposed to it. Let's go ahead and finish out this game with our 80 days. Again, this has infinite replayability, I feel like. Before turning in for the night, I attended to Monsieur Fogg. I ran a few errands for the hotelier. I went out to explore a little. Before turning in for the night, I went out to explore a little and entered into a conversation with a somewhat frantic Siamese soldier who had mislaid a locket, which I spotted, and who then told me that you could buy revolvers in San Francisco extremely valuable in New Orleans. I paid £1 for the information. I assured him we were unlikely to head that way. Sure. Your funds have gone down a touch, but your relations with Fogg have strengthened slightly. Alright. £4,000. Okay, we're pretty well equipped. Let's embark. The Water Lily was a sleek iron-hulled ship, a submarine prototype, captained by a severe American by the name of Wicker, and crewed by a mix of Americans, Chinese, and Japanese who all spoke a kind of salty, curse-studded sailor's English. In addition to the usual complement, the Water Lily carried an entire corps of brass-goggled engineers and brace of submariners on standby should the captain call the order to submerge. The rumor was that she had been a slave ship and had only been refitted for passenger transport a good few years after Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation. But I saw no trace of a dark past aboard. The crew seemed a happy family and welcomed us into their iron-hulled bosom. Let's get your health up, sir. A round of whist, very good. Our cabin, while hardly spacious, was adequate to our needs. One of the midshipmen came by to show us how to use the pressure seals in case of submersion, but in all other aspects, I looked forward to a peaceful steamship ocean crossing. I was not to be so lucky. What's the newspaper say? Cholera spreading from Manila aboard airships. Good thing we're on a regular ship. The salty air blew cool and sharp against my face as I opened the door onto the top deck. It was painfully early, and the only passengers awake were a group of Chinese laborers hunched miserably near the stern. I paid them no attention. One of their number was vomiting copiously. Into a bucket, I offered him my own secret remedy, my sincere commiserations, as much space as I could. My own secret remedy, which I had brewed up just for such an occasion. He swallowed it down with a certain dubious desperation, but immediately improved in both complexion and temperament. He thanked me most profusely. I asked them about the captain, but there was no language in common communication was possible, so we settled into playing dice in a quiet silence until the sun rose. Thank you, my hair was getting unruly. I accompanied Monsieur Fogg to a game of whist with a family of American missionaries who were traveling back to San Francisco for a family wedding. My master began strongly, but Mademoiselle Loretta, the eldest girl, had a sharp eye and won several hands in a row. A new round was dealt. I noticed Mademoiselle Loretta slip a card into her sleeve, smile triumphantly at my master. and play another winning hand. The minister's daughter accepted Monsieur Fogg's congratulations demurely, though I saw a flash of something altogether unsporting in her eyes as she lowered her lashes. It left a sour taste, and I resolved to steer my master away from any further games with the missionary family. Publishing sensation Noir Williamson has Voyage d'Amour exclusive. Good for her. I spent today in the company of the Water Lily submariners. They were all hardy men and women who preferred the dim enclosed spaces of the hold to the top deck. Too much sky, one of them said, squinting suspiciously. Her crewmate nodded. All that fresh air. They shuddered collectively and suggested a bracing race to the boiler room. I impressed them. I tried to keep up. I offered an alternative. I tried to keep up, but could not quite adjust to the lack of light and continually tripped over my own feet. Their commander, a short Japanese-American woman, pronounced me with utter disgrace. I decided to withdraw gracefully, pretending to a pressing appointment. Their commander waved me off with the barest of courtesies. They are strange folk, and I am not entirely certain I impressed them favorably. Let's converse. Greetings, Commander Davis. Monsieur Passepartout. Yes, San Francisco. Hardly seems important. Everyone knows San Francisco. Is it possible to go from San Francisco to Las Vegas? I fear not. Why not? Is there no railroad built yet? Honolulu? Do you know how to pick up harmonicas in Honolulu? Extremely valuable in New Orleans. I don't think I'm gonna go to Hawaii. We're like 75% of the way into our 80 days, so if I can make it to the eastern coast of the United States of America, I'll consider that a win because that's going to be my goal. I'm going to go home. I was climbing the rigging, entirely innocently, as exercise, of course, and not at all for the purposes of spying on the crew to appease my own rapacious curiosity, when I heard two of the crewmen arguing in a pigged-in mix of English and Japanese. I closed my eyes and listened to their voices. Only a few words were audible over the howling of the wind. Shrine, heathen worship. Before a sudden scream rent the air, one of the sailors was falling from the platform's edge. I was unable to look away. I closed my eyes as he fell, but the sound of his body hitting the deck was much worse than any bloody sight. I looked up and managed to catch sight of the fallen sailor's companion, his face still and pallid. Was that guilt in his eyes or merely shock? He slipped away before the captain arrived. I followed his example. All was clearly not well amongst the crew of the Water Lily. Aww. I feel well cared for. The Water Lily's crew held a funeral for the dead sailor. I was not specifically invited, but I felt a sense of responsibility. I was curious about the incident. The funeral was an excellent opportunity to learn more about the crew. Captain Wicker led the Christian service with customary grimness. I was surprised by the absence of the American minister, but later discovered that the captain was of a different denomination and considered the missionary and his family only a short step up from heathens. Oddly, only half the crew had come to pay their respects. I went in search of the rest, asked my neighbor. Suppose the death at sea was commonplace. I asked my neighbor about this breach of custom, and she narrowed her eyes. Joseph was a convert, she told me defiantly. The captain taught him to read the Bible himself. The rest of the crew are heathens. They stay away from our godly ceremonies. Day 60, Monsieur Fogg murmured that night in his sleep, and we are not yet even halfway. I'm sorry, Monsieur Fogg, we are not going to make it. At all. Greetings, mademoiselle. Passepartout. Why, hello. San Francisco. What can you tell me about it? They say San Francisco is one of the most advanced American cities. Salt Lake City? Can you go from there to Salt Lake City? Yes, I know a man who once took the Transcontinental Express from San Francisco to Salt Lake City. Omaha? Apparently Salt Lake City is connected to Omaha, is that right? You mentioned trains. I've been told my brother always wanted to travel aboard the Canadian Pacific Railway from Gastown to Regina. Do tell me more about Regina. Did you realize that the only bank of Regina has gone bankrupt? Now, anyway, I think I will marry a Frenchman. Really? Mademoiselle, I mean, a particular one? Oh, anyone. Any will do, so long as they have the vowels. Salt Lake City. What more can you tell me about Salt Lake City? Let me tell you, you can buy revolvers in Salt Lake City, extremely valuable in New Orleans. Whilst I cut Mademoiselle in Judea. Sounds wonderful. New Orleans. What more can you tell me about New Orleans? Got a great relationship with this Mademoiselle. Have you heard that you can obtain trombones in New Orleans that will sell for a fortune in New York? Perhaps a cup of Earl Grey, Mademoiselle. Don't mind if I do, but that was Darjeeling tea. Do tell me more about New York. I tend not to discuss such things. Is it possible to travel from New York to Toronto? I don't know, but listen, they still the best whiskey in all of Canada, Toronto. Ponta Delgada? Where is that? Can you travel from New York to Ponta Delgada? Monsieur, really? But some buyers will pay for binoculars, field glasses from Ponta Delgada. Goodbye. That may have been our longest conversation ever. Alright, by day 80, I want to make it to the southeastern United States. I'm coming home. Storm, too exhausted to write a proper entry. Suffice to say, we are all still afloat. As we settled down for the night, I was struck by an unrelated thought. Monsieur Fogg, the dateline. I have altered our watch already, Monsieur Fogg replied calmly. Did you think I might forget? My master was, of course, correct. With an eye such as his, it was unthinkable that he might miss such a detail. We had reached the point directly opposite Greenwich. Imagine what might have transpired had we forgotten. A less precise man than Monsieur Fogg might have finished on the 80th day and yet believed himself to have lost. Fogg said to have crossed the date line, but will extra day be enough? Probably not, if I'm the one in charge of our travels. Yesterday's storm hit us with little warning. One moment I was preparing Monsieur Fogg's shaving water, mending one of my shirts, adding a ribbon trim. Not shaving water. To exactly the right temperature. The next we were being tossed from one end of the cabin to the other. We were only lucky the bed was securely nailed to the floor. The ship shuddered and moaned. Rain clattered against our iron hull, nearly drowning out the shouts of the crew. The storm lasted nearly 6 hours and blew us far off course. The captain spent most of the day peering at his charts, trying to locate our position. There was no land anywhere upon the horizon. Relations with Fogg have strengthened slightly. How? Why? Oh no, we're going way down. Copenhagen bomb threats continue. The captain announced a change of destination. The Water Lily would now make for nearby Hawaii rather than San Francisco. We would make port in Honolulu in 5 days and would have to find our own further conveyance from there. Sure. Monsieur Fogg's lips pressed ever so slightly together, a rare outward sign of entirely understandable annoyance. This, my master said, will not do. But the beaches, monsieur, I protested. I have heard that the Hawaiian water is so clear you could spot a mermaid at 30 fathoms. Monsieur Fogg gave me a cool, appraising glance. Captain Wicker has renegade upon his word as a gentleman, and said curtly before lowering his voice to an almost furtive undertone, our course is clear. We must mutiny. I opened my mouth to argue to the point, but he continued on without so much as a pause. See to it, Passepartout. Use your natural charm? I injected brightly. Quite, he said, with the agreeableness of a gentleman who has just given his valet a near Herculean task. We will mutiny in 5 days. When we reach Honolulu, make your preparations as you see fit. Sir, I'm not comfortable with that, at all. A game of canasta with you? Capital. My task was clear. I was to foment mutiny aboard the Water Lily. I decided to begin by exploiting the crew's animosity toward one another. Divide and conquer, or so dear Maman always counseled. I considered inflaming their religious passions. Gossip and rumor would be a good way to start. Sure. I thought, though such subtleties might also be lost on a crew of sailors, so I decided to desecrate the Shinto shrine. No, steal the captain's wall-mounted crucifix, spread rumors about the Shinto crew members, gossip about the captain. So I decided to gossip about the captain, planning to forcibly convert all the Shinto crew when we reached port. Some of the younger members seemed alarmed, but others merely laughed off the possibility. Greetings, Reverend. Passepartout, good day to you. I'm sure you know all about Honolulu. They say King Kamehameha III is a devout Christian. Is there a route from Honolulu to San Pedro? Monsieur, really? But can you obtain cotton flowers in San Pedro? You can sell for a profit in San Francisco. Port Moresby? I have to go. Goodbye. Good, because I don't remember where any of these places are. It was with satisfaction that I noted a certain increased in tension aboard the Water Lily, a situation I would carefully have to exacerbate if my master's mutiny was to have any chance of success. Next, I attempted to ingratiate myself with Commander Davis's and the submariners, the Chinese laborers, who were still rather storm-tossed and discombobulated. I managed to convince them to play dice with me and proceeded to lose deliberately to gain their favor to the tune of 10 pounds. They were relatively pleased with their newfound bounty, and combined with my grace in losing, this seemed to make them look upon me with greater favor. Your funds have gone down a little, not too much. Fogg Valley, the brains, full report. I highly doubt that. I had attempted to stubborn the obvious targets aboard the Water Lily, but wars were often won by the unexpected. With that in mind, I turned my attention upon the valets and batmen. To the ship's officers. Being a gentleman's gentleman myself, I knew the value of a good servant. Conversely, I was also aware of the disruption a bad one could cause. I appealed to them with my logic and reason, my sense of duty, to which I felt they could not be immune. A few agreed, but not all. Whoops, didn't click fast enough. I spent the day putting the last finishing touches to my planned mutiny. It was a matter as delicate and serious as the creation of soufflé by a master chef. I spread word of my signal amongst my allies, then I retired. There was nothing more to be done. I'm so over this. Either the crew would rise with me, or most likely I would be hanging from the yardarm by next sunset. We reached Honolulu in the dark. The captain took a small skiff into the harbor with a few of his officers, wishing to inquire about repairs before putting the Water Lily into dry dock. Monsieur Fogg watched the boat for a long moment. Now is the time, he said crisply. I trust everything is in order. I voiced my doubts about the readiness of the crew to mutiny, which caused Monsieur Fogg to almost heave a sigh. Let us hope that you are in this case mistaken. With that, my master retreated to his cabin, and I called the signal to arms. The Water Lily erupted into chaos. Everywhere was the clash of sabers and pistols. Now and then I heard the shriek of the officers' sonic weapons, but I was not alone. The half of the crew that followed the Shinto creed fell in behind me, lit with the desire to teach their Christian crewmates a lesson rather than mutiny, but their anger helped stoke the fires of rebellion. The loyal officers found themselves inexplicably delayed and thwarted in their efforts to dress and arm to meet the mutiny. The valets and batmen had thrown their loyalty behind my uprising and brought us precious time to establish our control over the ship. The Chinese laborers rewarded my friendship with steadfast loyalty, throwing themselves into mutiny with all the desperation of men and women who utterly loathed sea travel and longed to revenge themselves upon their instrument of torment in any fashion. They lit fires and tore up the already ragged sails, causing some welcome chaos. The submariners did not appear. It seemed they had battened themselves in the hold for the duration of the mutiny, but perhaps it was the best outcome I could have hoped for, given my failure to impress their formidable commander. But noon it was clear that all of our efforts were for naught. However, the mutiny did not have the support and numbers required to defeat those who had maintained their loyalty. Captain Wicker and the other officers returned just in time to smother the last flames of rebellion. My master and I were trussed up and set off at the port at Honolulu, begged to be allowed to remain on board. Let's go to Honolulu. It was only due to Captain Wicker's good grace that we retained our luggage. Our mutinous comrades were not treated with such leniency, and they were thrown unceremoniously below. That was, Monsieur Fogg said with icy precision as we stood up on the strand of a volcanic island on which we found ourselves, rather badly done. I splashed him accidentally. Unfortunately, I could not disagree. This was well outside of my skill set and above my pay grade. Relations with Fogg have deteriorated. Alright, let's plan. Acapulco, we can go to Mexico. I think that's the only thing we can do. Alright. Let's go to the hotel. It was as though Honolulu lived in one indrawn breath, a wheeling swath of sky, white-laced waves, and pristine sand bounded by black volcanic bluffs. The town was entirely hidden behind the groves of coconut and eucalyptus. We took a short tour. We rested comfortable in palm top. We took a short tour. You look, said our coach driver, Hila, like city folk. And what do they look like? I was born in Paris, I nodded. My first breath was of her smoke and perfume. So you are, like the great and sleepless city of Paris, always in a rush. He murmured something to his horse, which looked well-fed and high-spirited. As a young man, I went to San Francisco to make my fortune. I, too, ran and scrabbled in pursuit of the almighty dollar. We are not pursuing wealth, monsieur, I corrected, though indeed Monsieur Fogg's fortune hung in the balance of his wager. Was our entire adventure merely a glorified pursuit of coin? Our adventure thus far had been somewhat a harum-scarum. Barely we had placed our toes on dry land. It was growing tiresome, and here we were, with still an ocean and a half to cross. Do you not wish the freedom to exhale, Passepartout? The coach driver asked, to stop running and simply feel the wind upon your face and the sun warming you with the sound of the ocean like a heartbeat. I will take my moments where I may, Hila, I agreed. With my master, that is where I find peace. Or, if not peace, then surely it is purpose, and that is much the same. The coach driver sighed and turned his face up to the endless sky. A man may find himself here, he told me, but only if he wishes it. He invited us to his home that evening and fed us dough-like poi and bright-fleshed slices of orange and guava. And I thought for once about peace and purpose, but I still thought of the marks in Monsieur Fogg's ledger and the distances we had yet to travel. I knew no peace in Honolulu, but my purpose burned bright and drew me ever forward. We finished our night in Honolulu with a souvenir, a swirling conch shell, collected from the beach as we walked back to our lodgings. Relations with Fogg have strengthened slightly. Let's explore, see what our other options are. San Francisco. I struck up a few conversations here and there, investigating the various possibilities for how we might make progress. We gotta check the market. Alright, let's get out of here. My goal is to get to the southeast. Oh, tomorrow at noon. I missed a day. 3 suitcases. 4 suitcases. Alright, Honolulu, let's spend the night. We're gonna immediately go to Mexico. We passed an anxious night with our 80-day deadline looming. Every sunset seemed to carry extra weight. We took a room and settled in, and I polished our shoes and hat brims. I helped the kitchen staff to clean. I spent a few hours walking around. I've never... you know, let's help the kitchen staff clean. Earning 68 pounds in fees and tips. Your funds have gone up somewhat. Alright, we gotta get out of here. Let's go to Acapulco. No, I missed it! Negotiate! Oh no. Another night, the clock was forever ticking upwards. With the last few hours of the evening, I spent a few hours walking around, but found nothing of any particular interest. Alright, we gotta go. Embark. Let's go. We boarded the Reina Cristina, a Spanish tourist Quevedo-type airship. Its gondola is shaped to resemble one of the infamous Spanish galleons of previous centuries. and as richly outfitted with Philippine hardwood furniture, Fijian silk curtains, and lacquered ornamental automata imported from China. My cabin resembled a fashionable salon more than an airship berth. Greetings, first mate. Passepartout, the journey treats you well. Acapulco. I'm very interested in Acapulco. I cannot talk about that, sir. Tabatinga? Surely that would not be possible. Panama City? Please, monsieur, I must go, but I hope we talk again. He offered no information. Ips. Oh well. The captain of the Torres Quevedo type airship swapped in the Spanish flag, flying from the prow to Hawaiian colors. The Mexicans are not fond of a Spaniard since the revolution, he explained. Spanish ships are turned away from the port. Surely they are not fooled. It was thin subterfuge, if it even deserved the term. He shrugged. It's a little game we play in the interests of trade. We send our Filipino crew members to negotiate for us, and the Mexican customs house adds a hefty surcharge to our taxes. The captain clapped me on the shoulder. Do not worry, my friend. This is not my first run. Alright, we're almost back at 100% health. We smelled the smoke first, and then gunpowder sweetened by blood. Acapulco was just visible in the distance, wreathed in lightning flash smoke. It was impossible to see what was happening. Through binoculars, I could make out the flash of gunfire. I was thankful for the onshore wind that meant we could not hear the fighting. Through the binoculars, I could make out the flash of gunfire, lit buildings, dark smoke plumes. Are the Spanish trying to retake Mexico? Is it pirates? I asked, unsure whether that would be the best explanation. Pirates, at least, would be swiftly dealt with by Mexican authorities. I do not know, he retorted. Before he gripped the brass-handled telescope swinging from his belt, he turned to the crew. I need a volunteer to climb the rigging and see what is up ahead. The rigging? Outside the airship? I gazed around the crew. Oh, I was going to click I will do it. I gazed around the crew, who stayed silent, apart from the few shuffled feet. Very well, the captain said grimly. If none of you is brave enough, I will do it. I looked around at the nervous, wide-eyed crew. Whatever was up ahead, the ship would need her captain to guide it through safely. So I volunteered. The crew stared at me with a mixture of pity and awe as the captain wordlessly handed me his telescope, a pair of aviator's goggles, and a red handkerchief. Wave the handkerchief when you are secure, and we will raise the ship to give you a better view. I shook Monsieur Fogg's hand before I climbed up the hatch and grabbed onto the ratlines. The wind buffeted in my face, and the roar of the twin Antoinette engines seemed amplified. Behind the comforting curve of the envelope, I saw an endless, dizzying stretch of sky and the Pacific Ocean glittering far, far below. I closed my eyes and heaved myself up, managing to grip the foot rope with my toes as I swung out and away from the gondola. I was braced against the wheeling sky, an impossible drop by nothing other than my trembling hands and feet clutching the rope. I looked up and planned my route, measuring the distance between the knots and noting gaps or frays in the hemp ropes before I placed my weight upon them. My acrobatic training gave me a certain dexterity as I climbed, and I saw rather than heard the airship crews leaning out the observation deck portholes cheering me on. I loosened a hand and gave them a rakish salute. I ignored their howls of encouragement and focused upon my task. I felt in that moment as if I were to climb the airships and laughed, sky-mad, as the rough hemp ropes dug painfully into my palms. I made it to the wildest cross-section of the envelope and waved my red handkerchief. I felt the hum of the engines grow sharper and the airstrip began to climb. Each shudder and yaw was more pronounced, and I clung to my perch for dear life as the wind did its best to pluck me from safety and fling me into the sucking embrace of the ocean below. It would not have me. I refused to meet my death beneath this unfamiliar sky. I extended the telescope as the ship bobbed in the air and peered through it at the sky above Acapulco. The Bay of Acapulco, thronged with warships firing cannon at the city and lit with unholy fire as they listed and sank. I saw their flags and shuddered. I will not recount how I climbed back down, how many times I slipped, how my palms bled and itched, how nearly I pitched into the ocean. I will tell you I made it back inside and made my report to the captain and crew. The French army is besieging Acapulco, I said, and then I fainted dead away. Relations with Fogg have strengthened slightly. What's in the news? I clicked it. I thought I clicked it at a time. The captain called the passengers and crew together for an announcement in the morning. We will leave the French to their business in Acapulco and head to Panama. I nodded eagerly and agreed. We must continue to Acapulco. Let's go to Panama. I nodded eagerly and agreed, not wishing to risk traipsing through a city under siege, even if it was besieged by my countrymen. Monsieur Fogg was less sanguine about our change of destination, but made some calculations in his ledger and seemed satisfied. It is a detour, but not a catastrophic one, he declared. We tethered at Panama in the mid-afternoon. From the air, I could see the snaking, gutted length of the canal under construction. A bright red and blue automatons threw clods of dirt and stone into the air. It certainly seemed a calmer spot than Acapulco. Despite the heavy construction work, the crew hurried us off the ship, unflatteringly eager to watch us depart. Whew! Well, we gotta explore. Okay, it went down way further. I thought. Panama City seemed to be a town perpetually on the edge of disaster. A great number of the inhabitants had emigrated to California during the gold rush 20 years ago. The 49ers, as they were called, there was certainly not gold in Panama. The 49ers, as they were called, had left empty spaces which were quickly filled by new immigrants, creating a multiracial polyglot society. I admired the Panamanian spirit. The town was a bricolage, a nation created from whatever materials were available with the anarchic strength of such an origin. Of course, there was the canal. The French had bought the rights to the construction from the Colombians, but quickly ceded those rights to the Haitians. But now the rumors said that the Haitians ran the place with the help of, so the local rumor went, the blood-drinking Bowden machines they used to dig up the canal. I could not help but be curious in particular about the supposedly mystical machines. They were elephant-sized steam shovels painted bright red and blue. Dyed rooster feathers adorned the boiler, and a single operator sat in the carriage to control the winch, boom, and bucket. Great quantities of stone and dirt were being thrown into the air, undercut by the whistle of steam escaping and boilers rumbling. I went back to my master, leading the canal diggers to their busy, noisy endeavors. A forged Englishman's passport in the name of Jack Passenger, sure. Alright, we're gonna leave it at that. Well, I don't think we're gonna make it to the Southeast United States like I was planning to. We've only got 7 days left. Yeah, let's just... Alright, open luggage. I don't need this parasol anymore. This wax cylinder. I don't see myself going to Dallas. Well, see, I spent too much time packing. That evening, I strolled the streets, avoiding the digging works, only to find myself accosted by a group of Panamanian dynamite blasters. They were a mix of city boys and Choco immigrants from the villages, united by their dislike of the Haitian digging crew. They seemed keen to talk. You made a good choice refusing the Haitian devil. Sheffield, the unofficial leader of the blaster crew, patted me on the shoulder. Their machines drink blood. They are merely machines, I waved away their superstition. Not magical in the least. You have not been here long, you will see. Sheffield gave me a dark look. We are leaving Panama before our blood ends up in a vat. You should leave too, if you have any sense. We are leaving, I shrugged, though I know not where. I am at my master's mercy. We are making for Tabatinga in the Amazonas. Sheffield gave me a considering look. We may have some space for men of talent and determination. A little further on, I encountered someone quite different, a tall black woman overseeing one of the engineering sites who introduced herself as Fanchon. Ah, a visitor from France, she smiled lopsidedly. Have you come to take back your canal? It will not be so easy. She raised her fists playfully. I must ask, do the shovels really run on blood? She smiled. Ah, is that what they say? I've heard it. Is it true? Blood is a terrible fuel, or we would be using it instead of coal and gasoline. We Haitians make our own organic fuel. We cannot rely on imports, you see. She explained, but did not elaborate further upon the exact constituents of the mixture. Madam, we are travelers looking to journey onward. I too am traveling on. I have she smiled, a little craft of my own devising, but it needs a few parts. You know how these things are. What kind of craft? I asked, intrigued. She shrugged. It's a kind of bird, she replied, but she is, you might say, injured at the moment. My master and I are going around the world, I declared. How exciting for you, she replied, though I do not think she meant it, and her eyes were moving away in the middle distance. Perhaps we could travel with you? When your craft is repaired, she looked at me as though judging my character by inferring the way my parts fitted together. As I say, it will take some time to repair or some manpower. Time and manpower, they are both realized by one thing. We are but simple travelers, I told her, and I am but a simple engineer, with sadly expensive taste in the parts I use. She named a figure, and it made my eyes water slightly. Well? I will ask my master, I muttered, and crept quickly away. Very good, she replied. I bid Madame Fanchon goodbye, at least until we decided whether we could afford such help as hers. We're not gonna make it back home. Alright, we're gonna get this started. We are on day 75. 5 days left till our 80 days. We have not succeeded in our goal to go around the world in that amount of time. There's no way we can make it back home in 5 days. So, but I'm going to go ahead and end this episode here. I'm talking so fast, it's creeping over. Oh my gosh. But thank you so much for joining me. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, I hope to see you next time. Bye!